Joining us now to discuss this, Craig McDonald, founder and director of Texans for Public Justice, the group that filed the indictment against Governor Perry. And of course, he is checking in from Austin, Texas, is Craig McDonald, and from Washington, D.C., Skyping in Republican political strategist Ford O'Connell. Craig, to you first, sir. Make the case for this indictment because, as you know, Governor Perry's defense team and some Democrats have said this is just partisan politics.
From the Democratic side, I don't know the whole facts of the case. It's in Perry's spin favor to talk about Rosemary's drunken behavior. No one has supported her drunken behavior. It's not about the conduct of the Travis County DA. It's about the conduct of the governor, who used to put a threat over Rosemary's budget to try to get her to do something he couldn't do through the regular judicial or legislative process. So it's not about her behavior. It makes for good TV to see her when she was arrested. It's really about the governor's conduct to try to threaten her to give up a job that the governor really has no control over. She serves at the behest of the voters of Travis County. Not too many people know that she did plead guilty. She did serve time in jail. She did go to rehab, and she went through a legal process here to determine whether she was fit to continue in office. That was a process that rightfully took place in Travis County. The governor has nothing to do with that process, and it was determined that she could continue in office. Again, no one's apologizing for her behavior. People have denounced it, including us. But that's not the issue. The issues are where the governor abused the power of his office to try to force her to give up her job. That's what the indictment's about. We call on people to read the indictments. There's nothing about the veto in there. We actually filed the criminal complaint prior to the governor vetoing the budget.
Well, let's get the take from Ford O'Connell.
Well, unless Craig has another ace up his sleeve, what Rick Perry did was not only the right thing to do, but it was constitutionally legal under Article 4, Section 14 of the Texas State Constitution. Here's the deal. What he wants you to say is that Rick Perry abused his government authority by basically saying he would veto under the line item veto power, which he has if Rosemary didn't step down. Let's understand something. She is the head of the Ethics Commission statewide in Texas. She's not a dog catcher from Lubbock, okay? So he did that. That would be like saying that essentially Ted Cruz abused his power when he told President Obama he'd shut down the government if he wouldn't repeal Obamacare. Is that a crime? No, it is not. And second count is coercion. Well, if that's the case and she's coerced, then basically progressive billionaire Tom Steyer, every time he offers incumbent candidates money to oppose Keystone Pipeline, that would be coercion. Unfortunately, the mere fact that you can lob this indictment and basically indict and book a sitting governor is going to make partisan politics over the next decade basically look like a casual volley, because we're going to keep going with this. How far do we push it? And at the end of the day, this is bad for the political process, period. And these guys, Texans for Public Justice, are essentially a group that wants to use the law to turn Texas blue and piggybacking off of George Soros's money. Unfortunately, this is a sad state of affairs. It shouldn't have gotten to this level, and it's bad for politics regardless of who's been indicted.
Craig McDonald, we heard Ford O'Connell say you're piggybacking off George Soros' money. Are you funded in part by any of the Soros foundations?
We are not, and the facts are wrong on a couple of issues. Rosemary Lemberg is not head of the State Ethics Commission.
She's head of the Public Integrity.
There has never been a challenge to the governor's authority.
Has your organization, which has been around since 1997, ever filed a complaint against a Texas Democrat?
Yes, 3 of them.
3 times? Really? And what were the 3 times that you did that?
You know, you can go on our website and see the 3 times. But
I understand. I have been on your website. Let me try one more thing. Isn't your sole organization's purpose basically to turn Texas blue and to focus not on good governance, but really on Republicans? You've tried to piggyback and failed once with George W. Bush when he was in office. You tried it again in 2011 and failed on Rick Perry. So how many other indictments or actions have you taken towards Republicans compared to Democrats?
Well, you talk about us taking action. It wasn't us taking action. We thought we witnessed a crime, wrote it up, and sent it to the judicial system. No one has spoken about if Perry Perry is under partisan attack here. It's coming from his own party. This complaint went before a regional Republican judge, an appointee of Rick Perry, who thought it had merit, appointed a Republican judge from outside Travis County again, from San Antonio, to oversee the case.
But that's not what you're doing, though.
That judge thought this had merit.
Wait a minute, Ford. Let's let Craig finish. Go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
So there have been 3 Republicans who have had their fingers on this and moved it along. Not one Democrat, not one official from Travis County has had any role in this complaint. Our only role, Texans for Public Justice, was to say we witnessed a crime and we should call the authorities about that crime. That's what we did.
But it's
the
not a
Republicans have moved
crime.
this forward,
Unfortunately,
not
here's what's happened. Let's talk about the optics here. You've basically, an indictment has been logged against Rick Perry. And we all know at the end of the day, most people don't know the difference between an indictment and a conviction. And frankly, as we all know, you can really indict a ham sandwich with a grand jury. As a lawyer, although not licensed in the state of Texas, but a native of Texas, I understand how you can use the legal system for political purposes. And let me ask you this. How does your case further good governance in the state of Texas, sir?
It makes the governor accountable to follow the law. The law was clear.
But he has followed the law. Let me say this.
He has not followed the law.
Article 4, Section 14 of the state
no one is
constitution says that
challenging
he
his
can
right
do that.
to veto the bill. It's fine. He could have vetoed her budget at any time. No one has challenged his right to veto any piece of legislation. And you bring it up as law.
There is a challenge.
We agree.
Texas
We agree.
State
It was lawful.
legislature can challenge that, sir. You are misrepresenting the law for political optics to basically assassinate Rick Perry by grand jury while protecting Rosemary Limburg, who, by the way, is not going to run for re-election because in Travis County, it's a Democratic stronghold, and you do not want Rick Perry to appoint someone, which would be his right if she had to step away, to head up the Public Integrity Unit. Is that correct, sir?
Keep talking like Democrats did this. Republicans did it. If Rick Perry thinks there's a witch hunt against him, he needs to look at his own party. That's where it's coming from.
Let me bring in another
Republican judges and prosecutors with integrity, enough integrity, to look at the facts and the law and decided indictments were warranted.
Well, speaking of the facts and the law, hang on a second, Ford. Let me get to one other point, because it is interesting. Craig, you mentioned some Republicans moving the case along. Nationally, a self-described liberal Democrat, Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz, was here yesterday. I want you to listen to something he said, and we'll get your reaction following the comment.
And that's what happens in totalitarian societies. But in the United States of America, we don't arrest people and indict people because the other party thinks they abuse their office.
So you hear what Alan Dershowitz has to say. Craig, you disagree with Professor Dershowitz?
Yeah, I think Professor Dershowitz, like many, don't understand the facts of this case. And the autocratic action was by Rick Perry, who acted not as governor within the constraints of the laws that controlled him. He acted as king, to say, I want this district attorney out, and I will threaten her with whatever I can to make sure she quits. He didn't follow the rule of law.
But
and
Craig,
Mr. Dershowitz,
Craig, on CNN on Sunday, you do not question the action. You don't question the action of him stripping the funding. You question how he did it, and that's it. So basically, you're telling me that the governor executed something that was within his duly legal authority.
Was filed before vetoed a portion of her budget. Not about the veto. We think the veto was totally legal. Would we agree with it policy-wise? Probably not. But the crimes were committed prior to the veto when he threatened her job and held the veto over her head. It's a crime under Texas law. You should read the statutes. They're very plain.
I understand the statute. It's technically not a crime under Texas law. You were using the courts to bring into a political difference here.
It's not a crime?
Sir, it is not a crime.
We agree. How many times do I agree with you? I agree with you and Alan Dershowitz that his exercise of the veto was not a crime.
And on that point of agreement, we'll have to stop right now. Unfortunately, one thing we cannot debate with is the clock, and that 4-letter word time has intervened. Gentlemen, we thank you for an invigorating discussion, something we'll continue to talk about in just a while. Now you've heard that debate, at least part of it. What's your reaction? Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. We're coming right back.